science. He sees evidence of this in science, as physicists have been competing in their own cosmic Spartan race.
So it all started with Plato. Plato loved geometry, and he thought that to understand nature, find symmetry, find the most fundamental symmetry that exists, and then you unlock the secret of everything.
Most physicists still use Plato's idea of symmetry to try to explain how the universe works.
When one thing on one side is the same as on the other side, we call that asymmetry. So you look around yourself, and the world has all these shapes. Animals, butterflies, plants, and there is a natural drive of us humans to identify patterns in everything we see.
Our desire to seek symmetry in the world has lured physicists into applying this rule to one of the greatest mysteries of all: how the universe began. Many physicists believe that just before the Big Bang, the universe was like a perfectly symmetric glass chandelier. And suddenly, the whole fixture shattered into billions of pieces. Scientists have been trying to put the pieces back together to know what the original structure looked like. If we can understand how everything fits, then maybe humanity can take God's place in the celestial throne room. But Marcelo thinks physicists are trying to put together a puzzle that will never fit, because when scientists do experiments, symmetry often falls apart.
One of the most fascinating particles that exist in nature is called the neutrino. Now, it turns out that most particles, as most things in nature, they spin. They have a rotational motion. And you would expect that neutrinos, like everything else, could spin clockwise or counterclockwise. Perfect symmetry. But it turns out that in nature, you only find neutrinos that are what we call left-handed. They only spin in a certain way. Nature does not like right-handed neutrinos. So there is clear, right there, a very fundamental system of particles that interact where nature is not perfectly symmetric. So even at the level of our own bodies, our hearts are on the left, right? And our livers are on the right. Then in fact, if I would get my face, which you may think is symmetric, and I would superimpose my left side with my right side, I would definitely not look symmetric at all.
Marcelo believes the asymmetries of nature tell us our theories are wrong. In fact, he suspects we will always be wrong. Finding one theory to explain everything may be a race with no finish.
Everything that we know about nature depends on how we see nature. And it turns out that our tools are limited, that what we can infer from nature is limited. We cannot know everything. It's really about our urge to understand the world that is never final and never perfect. This notion that there is always something else, that there is always an imbalance in the way we perceive things, is what makes us human.
The human drive to become all-powerful and all-knowing seems unstoppable. Science has given us tremendous power, but we have limitations that we may become. But maybe our fallibilities are a gift. After all, they are what keep us striving to achieve what seems impossible.